Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we got something a little bit different than my usual comic reviews. We're going to be checking out the Image comic Big Game Issue 1 by Mark Millar and Pepe Larraz. This is Mark Millar's big MILLARWorld crossover event that brings all of his creations together under one universe and pits them against each other. The premise is pretty bonkers, but it gets even more so as Millar explains that the killer, the father of Wesley Gibson from Wanted, killed all of the world's superheroes back in the 1980s and made sure the entire world forgot they existed, relegating their stories into things like comic books, comic book movies, and toys. That alone is such a cool premise and such a big swing in terms of storytelling, yet over the course of the first issue, Millar just pulls it off completely. After the main premise is revealed, the rest of the issue is about newcomers to the Millar world like Edison Crane from the Prodigy book, piecing together that something has gone wrong with their world, and he begins investigating things no one seems to remember with a new mysterious character called Bonnie. Millar balances quite a fair bit in this premiere issue. There's quite a bit to cover, but I never felt overwhelmed or behind on what's going on. I've read some of the Millarworld stuff, but not all of it since there's quite a fair bit of it, but I never felt like I was being handicapped because of that or being left out of the fun through the issue. Outside of Edison's investigation, we also catch up with a few other characters from Mark Millar's worlds, like Duke McQueen from Starlight, who has a nice little scene with his granddaughter delivering a pretty topical message about the truth always coming out, no matter how deep it's been buried by people. The other big creation, of course, is Kick-Ass, as Dave Lazowski gets caught back up with things as we find out that he's pretty desperate to get back in the hero game as Kick-Ass. He's been trying to find other things to occupy his life, but he finds that nothing does it so much like superheroing, and he actually ends up trying to join the Ambassadors, writing to the leader of the Ambassadors to see if he can join as the American Ambassador. The Ambassadors, of course, are a big part of the issue, being that they're the most recent Millarworld creation, and I liked that they are being used as the world's first superhero team, more or less, and one of the big reasons why Wesley Gibson has decided to continue his father's plan and take down the heroes yet again. I think it's quite cool that we're using these newer characters in such a cool way, and just the team of the Ambassadors, which what I've read of so far has been pretty good, and I like the idea that they're all just named after the country they represent. It keeps things nice and simple and makes so that you don't have to remember long hero names or different heroes and who's who and everything. You can just tell by their costume, which is just the flag of their nation. The sequence with Kick-Ass is also pretty cool, since Dave is being used as the genesis of this new age of heroes, and it's quite cool being that Kick-Ass was really the first hero here on the Millar world, and Millar is bringing that back and sort of kind of retconning it a little bit, if I would say, just because obviously the heroes did exist before but no one remembered them. But I like that he's using Dave as the genesis of this new age of heroes that people like Nightclub and Huck and the Ambassadors spawned out of. It kind of gives him a bit more sort of clout in the event, and I'm intrigued to see what he's going to do with Dave. In terms of villains for the series, Wesley Gibson is obviously the big bad of the story, and will probably shock people who have only seen the film, where in the film he's kind of a hero, more or less, but in the book he's definitely a villain. He's a proper villain. His dad was a leader of a supervillain group, and I like that he's now the no-nonsense big villain trying to recreate what his father did. I also love the idea that in trying to rid the world of big, bombastic, colourful heroes, he himself has become a big, bombastic, mustache-twirling villain. It's kind of cool that he can't see what he's become is something that he would actually hate, and I quite like that idea. His main partner through the book, of course, is Nemesis, the white-caped assassin who is being used as his main attack dog, or he's heavy for the series, as he's the one who's being actively sent out to hunt these heroes and take down heroes like the Ambassadors. Pepe Larraz helps tell Millar's huge storyline with his just perfect artwork. I love Pepe's work over on the X-Men books, and here is no different. He brings this big, bombastic, blockbuster feel to the story, and it never just lets up, keeping this huge story running at a really nice pace. It flows really well from page to page. I would also like to bring special attention to the Duke McQueen section of the book, which just looked fantastic, and it had this lovely late afternoon sun-drenched dream-like quality to it, and it helped visualize the character and how he's is, you know, kind of wholesome and kind to others, and it's mirrored greatly with the Nemesis related artwork, which is all these dark, gritty backgrounds, you know, shadows casting everywhere, and it's then offset by the villain's bright white attire. Big Game issue 1 is off to one hell of a beginning, pulling together all of Mark Millar's most popular creations into one pretty well set out storyline. It sets up the 5-issue event premise and immediately starts stacking bodies in Millar's signature cynical fashion. I'm going to give this issue a 9 out of 10, so give it a go and I promise you will not be disappointed.